Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Metal Command podcast. Tony here with you, and I'm joined by two guests today. And we are going to be talking about Jon Schaffer from Iced Earth, who, as many people know, was one of the people that received a pardon from President Trump. That was there on the January 6th protest. And the two guys I have with me today, I have Justin Roth, who's been on my show a few times, and guitar player from War Curse. Justin has also been involved in doing road work for bands and managing some pretty big bands in the metal scene. He hosts a really cool podcast called Heavy Business, where they talk a lot just music industry stuff and give advice to bands and stuff like that. And then, of course, I also have Christian Wentz. Christian is a cybersecurity analyst, and he was on my artificial intelligence episode, which we'll probably revisit that at some point, and also played in Circle to Circle and did quite a bit of touring over time with that, and of course his band Future's End as well. So gentlemen, I am happy you are here because you two are probably two of the best people that I could have this discussion with, and we're going to talk about Jon Schaffer from Iced Earth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you guys really quick about him as a musician and any experiences. Maybe you've met him, maybe you haven't. I'll go into my own personal experiences that I've had with him. And, the first thing I'll ask is, you guys are both guitar players, both very good guitar players. I'll probably start with Justin. How would you evaluate him as a musician, as an actual guitar player? And have you ever met him or, hung out with him or anything like that?
Yeah. So, I think he's a great musician. And I have met him. I have played with him. We've played with Iced Earth. And it was kind of I guess you could call it a bad timing. I don't know. I hate to even say that because, we'll get into that. But when the whole Jon Schaffer thing broke and when his face was slathered all over the TV, my profile picture at the time was from a recent show we had played with Iced Earth. And there I was like a dipshit, like a deer in the headlights, just standing in front of Iced Earth's backdrop because we didn't fly our backdrop that night. And the onslaught of hate that I got just for that alone was quite comical. But I have met Jon. He was very kind to us. Nice guy. Everybody in Iced Earth was really, really nice to us, really accommodating. I don't know him. I know people who do know him, rather well. I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about him until, the obvious. But he seemed like a pretty level-headed. I know it's funny to say that now, but yeah, he seemed like a pretty regular dude. He was pretty humble. He was cool. He was cordial. Yeah, I didn't have a bad thing in the world to say about the guy.
Christian.
I actually I'm going to echo a lot of what it is that Justin just said. I have also played with him. I want to say it was Sweden Rock and on one of the cruises, I think Full Metal or the Vlachen one, or that was the Full Metal Cruise. What's the other one? 70,000 tons. I can't remember which one it was, but again, I agree. He's actually a great guitar player. He also, you got to give him a lot of credit for a few things. First of all, he created a very unique sound. Iced Earth sounds like Iced Earth, and Matt Barlow was kind of their signature sound as far as vocals go, but it didn't matter who was singing for them. They still sound like Iced Earth, and that's something that's really tough to do. And secondly, he was able to, I think that what brought them brought him more success in the music business was it was a live album that they did in Greece. And he knew how to properly leverage that to really build a good business out of the Iced Earth brand. So I have a lot of respect for him as a musician and a songwriter, as well as a businessman. The dude knows what he's doing, and this is not an easy business to be in.
No.
So he was always good. He was nice to us too. Actually, he had some very nice things to say about my guitar playing, and I got all warm and fuzzy from it. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy based on my experience with him.
Yeah. So for me, I just put up a podcast where I talked about his incident and talked about, of course, this the discussion we're going to have about him. Early days of my show. So you're going back to the Something Wicked, This Way Comes, Dark Saga, Alive in Athens as well.
Stuff. Yeah, Alive in Athens. That's what I was talking about.
So I met him several times. He came to this. I'll never forget the first time I met the guy. It was right around about a year after I started my radio show, and I met him at this place in Lorain, Ohio, about 45 minutes west of Cleveland. It was a dump. It was called the Flying Machine, and it was crazy because it was Iced Earth, Jag Panzer, and Anvil of all bands. And I'll never forget. That's when I first met Jon. It's actually when I first met Mark from Jag Panzer, who was an outstanding guy too. And it probably weren't a ton of people there, but I sat down with Jon. I interviewed him in person. I actually, weirdly enough, I found that interview randomly on a random DAT tape that I had sitting out, and realized it was him on there. But it was cool. And the first time I met him, I'll never forget, he gave me a Night of the Storm Rider long sleeve and a copy of the double CD version of Days of Purgatory, and thanked me for the support. He was really cool. I interviewed him numerous times over the course of the radio show. I think the last time I had ever actually talked to him was probably 2000. It was right before Incorruptible came out. So he came on my radio show for a little bit. And the guy was always really super nice to me. I do not know him personally at all, so I have no personal connection to this dude, other than the fact that I've had very good. I've always had a good experience with the guy. I've interviewed him in person a couple times when they came into the Cleveland area, but for the most part, my own personal experience with Jon was always pretty positive for the most part. I mean, there's not really anything bad I could say. The only thing that, I think there was one interview I did with him, and I think the person who might have interviewed him before me kind of made him mad. And I could tell in the beginning he was a little bit agitated, but he didn't take it out on me. But you can tell sometimes when you first talk to somebody, they may sound like that. But for the most part, the guy was always cool to me. I've had some people talk smack to me about him, but for the most part, almost everybody that I know who knows him doesn't really have anything bad to say about the guy. So that is kind of where I go for there. And there's one thing about Jon, though, that I did like, and it's the fact that he was always probably one of the most straightforward, not afraid to tell his opinion type of guys. You knew where you stood with the dude. Let's put it that way. That's the vibe I got. And bands and friends of mine that knew him said the exact same thing. Hansi from Blind Guardian used to tell me the exact same thing, who's one of his best friends. So again, I'm bringing that up and saying that in the beginning because it's going to go into when we start talking about the statement he made when, he obviously had, gotten sentenced and he put out through his lawyers. So, hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.